It is official, everyone. The Cloud Matrix 384 supercluster, which I covered last week on this channel, which Huawei has just announced, they are already shipping it to clients. In fact, it has been confirmed that they have delivered. This is absolutely astonishing news that they were able to deliver this fast on this chip. Let's go ahead and read this article, and then we'll jump a little bit into what makes the Cloud Matrix 384 so impressive. And remember, Cloud Matrix 384 doesn't compete with the lower level H20s that were banned, just recently banned by the Trump administration. It actually competes with the NVL72 powered by the GB200s. That is Grace Blackwell 200, the top of the line Nvidia chip right now. Cloud Matrix 384 sent to data centers serving Chinese tech companies as they seek to fill gap created by U.S. export controls. Huawei has started the delivery of its advanced artificial intelligence chip cluster to Chinese clients who are increasing orders after being cut off from Nvidia semiconductors because of Washington export restrictions. The Shenzhen-based tech conglomerate has sold more than 10 sets of Cloud Matrix 384, which links a large sum of chips together according to two people with knowledge of the matter. Keep in mind that they just announced this. And in their press release, they made it sound like it was going to be released in like 4 to 6 weeks, which I thought was amazing. And it turns out they're shipping now, and that there's already been confirmed shipment of it to somebody. That's absolutely nuts. Those who received the first deliveries include data centers that serve Chinese tech companies, one of the people said. Industry analysts have said they were impressed by the speed at which Huawei has built and begun to ship Cloud Matrix, a system that connects 384 AI processors to provide the computing power needed to develop AI models and services. Impressed is an understatement. Okay, that is 100% an understatement. What they did here, I thought it might be impossible. I thought for sure it was a little bit of hyperbole. Turns out not at all. The development of Huawei's Cloud Matrix 384 means China now has an AI system capable of beating Nvidia, said Dylan Patel, founder of chip consultancy Semi-Analyst. Again, this competes not with the H20s that were just banned by Trump's export restrictions, which Nvidia just took a $5 billion write-down on. This competes with Grace Blackwell, this current generation, the NVL72, 36 GB200s, that is 72 Grace Blackwell 100 chips. Huawei's new products come as Chinese customers have been further restricted from Nvidia's AI chips. The U.S. group said this month it would take a $5.5 billion earnings hit. I talked about this already. After President Donald Trump made its H20 chip tailored to comply with earlier export controls require a special license to be sold to Chinese customers. Huawei is accelerating its chip development to help domestic tech companies compete with their global peers despite the restricted access to the world's best technology in that area. It has told local clients that Cloud Matrix performs significantly better than Nvidia's NVL72, a popular AI cluster used by U.S. tech giants. The top performing, might I mention, top performing mass-produced AI cluster from Nvidia. The only thing in America that passes it would be Google's internal Ironwood systems, and those are not available for anybody outside of the Google Cloud, which consists of 72 of its GB200 chips. In terms of computing power and memory, that's actually inaccurate. It's 36 of the GB200. Each GB200 is 2 GB100s put together. That's where they get to 72 in here. 72 Grace Blackwell 100, not a big deal. According to a company presentation reviewed by the Financial Times and people with the knowledge of the matter. So the Cloud Matrix, what they did is that each of the individual chips are not anywhere near as powerful as NVIDIA's chips. They use the Huawei Ascend 910C chips. These are more comparable to the H100s. However, they put 384 of them in there. And remember that Huawei is a networking giant. Okay, so when you remember Huawei first coming under fire from the Trump and Biden administration, it was because of their 5G and their networking systems solutions. So they put that knowledge to use here, and they were able to combine more chips, connect them faster to create a system that outperforms the Ascend and computationally. However, it is not as energy efficient. So that says it right here. Cloud Matrix 384 uses Huawei's Ascend 910C chips, which by themselves underperform NVIDIA's GB200 processors. I just explained that. But Huawei has used a larger quantity of the chips, 384, connected by a super node through which all processors, which all processors in a set are connected using optical technology. This technology is called LPO technology. We will be covering this. I think it's important to discuss to boost the cluster's overall performance. In a company presentation, Huawei claimed Cloud Matrix outperformed NVL72 in key metrics, saying it was 67% higher in compute and more than 3 times larger in aggregate memory capacity. Extremely impressive. It is compensating for weaker individual chip performance with advanced networking to boost the chip performance on a cluster. That's going to be that LPO. And just so you know, LPO is advanced in some ways, but it has a drawback, and that's mainly with energy consumption. But I keep bringing that up because in China, energy is not as expensive as it is in America. We always have Jensen Huang coming on, CEO of Nvidia, and he's telling us that in the future we'll be able to determine our return by just looking at how much energy we're going to spend. Okay, and I think that's fairly accurate. I think he's actually kind of correct on that. But so then what actually becomes the most important thing, right, in the future is going to be not how much energy, it's going to be the cost of the energy. And China has the US beat flat out in cost of energy. It's much more efficient over there, much more readily available and efficient. Industry analysts said Huawei had leveraged its background in telecommunications to prove its chip system performance. I did go through that, the cost of electricity in China in my prior video. I'll see if I can link to it. Despite the strong metrics, Cloud Matrix 384 has several disadvantages compared with NVIDIA's rival products, said industry experts. Due to the use of more chips, Huawei 384 has a much higher energy consumption. I think it's about 200% more, leading to larger electricity bills. Huawei software systems compared with NVIDIA's CUDA require more maintenance from experienced engineers. This is an important one. So Huawei right now, they have the technology, but NVIDIA has the ecosystem. What do I mean by ecosystem if you don't understand it? So we get these chipsets as the developers, but right away, these are custom. Okay, so this is custom to Huawei. NVIDIA has a custom chipset to them. And usually, you need time from these manufacturers to build out proprietary systems, such as CUDA, that help you develop on their chipsets. And here is where NVIDIA does have a big lead. And so to catch up here, Huawei is not just going to have to look at manufacturing processes, they're going to have to look at developers. They're going to have to get a ton of AI developers on there, hire them to build out their ecosystem so that the necessary tools that the companies need are readily available for them to get the most out of these chips. Still given China's, CUDA requires more maintenance from experienced engineers, resulting in operational manpower costs 3 to 5 times larger. Still given China's abundance of power and engineers, China has many more STEM candidates than America. Cloud Matrix was the viable solution for clients, especially when they were cut off of NVIDIA's most advanced technologies, said people with knowledge of the sales. Cloud Matrix 384 sells for about RMB 60 million, that's 8.2 million US dollars. A set and exact price depends on an individual contract according to industry insiders. This compares with about 3 million for NVIDIA's NVL72 according to analyst estimate. NVIDIA said it has a range of prices depending on its original equipment manufacturer and its customer specifications. So Huawei has absolutely came in and it has filled the gap. And so the next thing I want to show you real quick is this. This is going over Huawei's AI ecosystem, strengths and the hurdles that it has. So while we're talking about Huawei here, they're doing absolutely amazing things. They have to because of how the US is forcing the West to not work with them. They're using the MAGA, which is make everything worse, instead of the Muga philosophy, which is my philosophy, of make us great again. If the US worked with China, we both would benefit. If the West worked with China, everybody would benefit. Okay? But since whatever reason, our last 2 administrations are deciding we don't want to work with you, they're going it alone and they're doing a tremendous job. Here are some of the positives. AI chip advancement. Double Ascend 910C chip yields rates chip yield rates to 40% and plans to ship 100,000 plus accelerators by 2025. Their new Extend 920 built on SMIC's 6 nanometer process delivers 900 teraflops and 4,000 gigabytes second bandwidth, 30 to 40% better than the 910C. Strategically unveiled just after Nvidia's export controls. That was a nice drop that they did. I did a video on that last week. It serves as domestic alternative to Nvidia's restricted H20 chip. It's actually much more comparable to the H100, demonstrating Huawei's agility responding to Western technology restrictions. Now, the most important thing in this line, if you don't understand any of this, just say that the new chip, the Extend 920, is going to, of course, be more powerful than the 910C. But the most important thing is they're going to increase the chip yield rate. So the biggest thing when you have these foundries, which is what you call the people who create these chips, is what kind of yield rate can they get? So when they get their large silicone, piece of silicone, they put it through, how many chips are they going to get out of that? And right now, Huawei, they're behind Nvidia on yield rate, absolutely, but they are improving. And so what they're saying here is that with the Extend 920, they're going to be seeing improved chip yield rate on that. System architecture and performance, Huawei Cloud Matrix 384 employs a scale-out approach with 384 Extend 910C processors across 16 racks. The system delivers superior aggregate performance compared to NVIDIA's GB200 NVL72. 300 versus 180 petaflops of BF16 compute, which is very important for AI inference. 2.1x more HBM, sorry, not for inference, for training. 2.1x more HBM bandwidth and 3.6 larger HBM capacity. Okay, so we already discussed this. It's performing extremely well. Why is it performing extremely well? It comes down to here, the networking technology, which is where Huawei excels. Cloud Matrix 384 system employs all optical network technology with 6,912 linear pluggable optical LPO. We will discuss more about this. Transceivers at 800 gigabytes per second each, delivering over 5.5 petabytes per second bandwidth. That's a tremendous amount of information with low latency. Okay, as the first to implement LPO technology at scale, Huawei eliminated expensive DSP chips from transceivers, reducing cost and power consumption. This approach achieves a 2.1x higher scale-up bandwidth and 5.3 scale-out bandwidth compared to NVIDIA's solution, demonstrating Huawei's networking experience for large-scale AI applications. We will talk about this in a second. There are some caveats with this, but what they did here was absolutely amazing. Vertical integration, this is just talking about the AI stack. So not only do you have the chips, you need to have the stack, okay? And so Huawei is working hard on doing that, right? They have the semiconductor equipment, they have the operating fabs, they have networking infrastructure, and they're working on the most important thing, I think, for them, which is their software stack, and then the software ecosystem. Huawei has developed robust AI software, CAN, and MindSport that supports major frameworks like PyTorch and JAX. PyTorch is one of the leading AI frameworks. However, right here, though CAN remains less mature than NVIDIA's CUDA. And I think less mature is a little bit of an understatement. CUDA is kind of the default leader right now in the AI space for developer tools. Now, here are some challenges that they have. Energy efficiency, okay? Because of the approach you're taking, their chips are not as efficient. Cloud Matrix 384 is significantly less power efficient than NVIDIA's alternatives, 2.3x less efficient per flop, 1.8x less efficient per memory bandwidth, and 1.1x less efficient per HBM memory. It consumes 559 kilowatts versus NVIDIA GB200 NVL72's 145 kilowatts. So there's a significant difference. You might say, hey, that's more than 2x. But of course, remember that you're getting more compute power out of it. However, they note here that lower electricity costs in China, $56 per megawatt hour by 2025, make this acceptable domestically. Power and efficiency remains a major disadvantage for global markets with higher energy costs and stricter data center power constraints. Okay, so I mentioned that earlier. In China, this is not as big of a deal. However, if Huawei, and I would imagine they want to go to a global market, they will have to improve this, because if they go into places where electricity is not as cheap, this will be a big deal. Of course, you have a manufacturing challenge. What we talk about on here. U.S. restrictions bar Huawei from accessing cutting-edge semiconductor processes and equipment, forcing reliance on China's SMIC with its limited DUV-based 7 to 6 nanometer technology. Okay, so understand that the best technology out there is EUV. However, the DUV that right now is being used by SMIC is as good as it gets. It's absolutely fantastic. And there's nothing in the West that, like, people were shocked at how good these latest chips have been with the DUV. However, they're still not as good as what you could get with EUV. And the company that produces the best EUV lithography machines in the world, ASML, is prevented by the US government from doing business with China on the EUV machines. I think they could serve them DUV. I wonder if they'll cut those off too now. The Ascend 910, and when I say they, I don't mean ASML, but the US government. The Ascend 910C initially suffered from low yields, 20%, though now improving to 40%. Okay, that's actually really good. Geopolitical risk. So we've been talking about this all over the place, right? For multinationals, adopting Huawei AI creates compliance challenges, sanction risks, and dependence on Chinese supply chains. This could accelerate the development of separate Western and China-aligned technology ecosystems. This would be the absolute worst thing in the world for me, right? We don't want this. Why would we want separate AI systems when we could develop together, like what happened with Llama and DeepSeek opening up that? Why wouldn't we want to work together and make a better product? I don't get it. But yeah, this is a true geopolitical risk for China. They can service their own market, but if you go outside of China, it's going to be like, will I get sanctioned? What will happen to me if I do this? Will the US government, will they allow me to buy it, but then they'll sanction me later? Will they say that, Huawei can't support it, et cetera, et cetera? Technical limitations. Huawei AI chips lag behind Nvidia's with lower computational power. These are the individual chips. As a system, it can exceed it, but as an individual chip, it is behind. 30 to 40% of B200. Memory bandwidth 3.2 times 8.0 terabytes second, capacity 128 times 192 gigabytes. This is actually incorrect. This lower computational power. I don't think this is B200. I think it means to say H100. While Huawei compensates by using more chips, it creates inefficiencies, manufacturing limitations, SMIC 6 nanometer versus competitors 4 nanometer, 5 nanometer TSMC nodes, restricts performance per watt metrics. And additionally, Huawei's software ecosystem remains less mature than NVIDIA's CUDA. So we obviously talked about that. I got one more thing I wanted to share with you real quick. And this is the CPO technology. Okay, so CPO is the de facto leader technology in networking. Okay, it just simply is. But there are caveats to that, like there's caveats to everything. And the caveat to that, when we look at this, of CPO over LPO, and Huawei used LPO, is that LPO, once again, uses more energy. Now, Huawei, if you remember what I said earlier, they use an advanced form of LPO to reduce how much energy it uses. However, it's still not going to be as efficient as the best CPO technologies out there. And as you can see right here, advantages in performance, low power consumption. That's the one main thing that CPO has. Relevant research data indicates that optimal communication systems utilizing CPO technology can reduce power consumption by 30 to 50% compared to traditional solutions at the same data transmission rate. For large-scale data centers, this translates to substantial annual savings on electricity costs and contributes to achieving green energy saving goals. Now, again, this won't matter as much in China with their lower costs on electricity, but it is going to matter if they want to open up their global market, which I would imagine that they do. Okay. However, an advantage for LPO is high transmission rate and stability. Leveraging its unique architecture and collaborative operating mechanism, CPO technology can support higher transmission rates, right? Oh, sorry, for CPO. Currently, CPO technologies has achieved high-speed transmissions of 800 gigabytes and even 1.6 terabytes. But we did see that LPO, the version that Huawei used, was achieving 800 gigabytes transmission data per second. Okay, so the advantage that CPO is still considered better. This paper probably, written in February 12, 2025, probably wasn't looking at what Huawei did. Again, I just read the articles that said that the LPO version that Huawei had is the most advanced version of LPO out there, but still going to be lagging behind a little bit by CPO. So this is the update I wanted to give you. I found it absolutely amazing when I saw this headline come across that they're shipping this. If you watched my video from a week ago, you'll see where I'm like, boy, if they ship this in a month, that would be crazy. And to find out they're shipping it already, that's just I mean, hats off. That's absolutely amazing. Engineers over there doing great work. So we're seeing things heat up in the AI chip race. Unfortunately, Nvidia is being handcuffed. Nvidia and Huawei are being handcuffed by politics. Kind of stinks, but they're both doing the best with what they got. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you don't like it, let me know why. Have a great day.